Chapter 3962. At the mention of Su Yingxue, Bailey Hongzhuang was not in a good mood. She sighed and said, sooner or later, she will be taught a lesson because of her temper. Although the majority of cultivators with strength had a temper, this temper was definitely not for cultivators who were stronger than them. They did not make a move, but it did not mean that the people Su Yingxue provoked in the future would also not make a move. If Su Yingxue could not change this habit, she would suffer a great loss sooner or later. Of course, she also did not think that Su Yingxue could change this habit. Shangguan Yingying nodded. She is safer in Penglai Palace Hall. If she goes out, who knows how many enemies she will provoke with her temper. In my opinion, this fellow's temper is simply more annoying than Chu Yunyao's. Although Chu Yunyao's actions were overboard, there was at least one reason. This Su Yingxue completely had the temper of a young miss. She had no ability and still had a big temper, which was even more unacceptable. Since we have already separated from them, let's just treat them as if they never existed. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. It's still more comfortable with our own team. That's true. Xiren nodded. When we are with them, we have to pay more attention to what we say. It's really troublesome. It's not early now. Let's find a place nearby to rest and recover to our best condition. If the skeleton army appears at night, we can also fight with them in our best condition, Di Beichen said. Hearing this, everyone agreed. They had not encountered the skeleton army for 2 days in a row. With their current location, this could be considered very lucky. As for whether they would have such good luck again tonight, no one was sure. Therefore, they had to be prepared. Casually finding a place with a wide view, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest stopped to rest. The sky gradually turned from bright to dark. After a period of rest, everyone had recovered to their best condition. However, at this moment, Ren Zime was surprised to find a team in front of them. However, when they saw the people in the group clearly, a wisp of surprise could not help but surface in their eyes. Isn't this Lin Mingtao's team? Ren Zime looked at the newcomers in surprise. Why didn't they team up with Xiao Wenyu's team? In his line of sight, only Lin Mingtao and the others were walking over. Xiao Wenyu and the others were nowhere to be seen. Previously, they had clearly heard Lin Mingtao's suggestion to team up with Xiao Wenyu's group. Could it be that something had happened after that? Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest looked at one another, and Shangguan Yingying couldn't help chuckling. Maybe Su Yingxue's big missy's temper is too bad. She was angered to death by us and threw a tantrum again, so Lin Mingtao and the rest didn't want to bother with her. Mo Yinxue retracted his gaze and said in a low voice, Lin Mingtao must have refused to team up with them. Ao Lingxiao nodded, this Lin Mingtao should be a smart person. After assessing the situation, he felt that it wasn't worth it to offend you 3 Astral Radiance Realm experts for Su Yingxue and the rest, so he directly rejected the idea of forming a team. He even came to our side to let everyone know that he wasn't with Su Yingxue and the rest. Chapter 3963. It seems that this Lin Mingtao is also a shrewd person. Di Beichen said slowly. Ren Ziheng smiled and nodded, Lin Mingtao is indeed a very shrewd person. He always knows how to judge the situation. He will never do anything that harms his own interests. Although we all know this Lin Mingtao is indeed a good person, so his popularity in the inner palace of Penglai has always been quite good. I can see that. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly, although we know that he came to prove that point, we really don't have any ill feelings towards him. Because Lin Mingtao was showing that he was more inclined towards them. No one would have any ill feelings towards someone who expressed kindness to them. Ren Ziheng, what a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet you here again. Lin Mingtao pretended to be surprised and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. He slowly walked to them with a surprised smile on his face. Although Ren Ziheng had already guessed this, he didn't expose it. He immediately smiled and nodded, yes, what a coincidence. Senior brother Lin, why didn't you team up with senior brother Xiao? Shangguan Yingying pretended to be curious and asked. She was really curious about how Lin Mingtao would answer. Hearing this, Lin Mingtao sighed and said, since I saw the conflict between you and junior sister Su, I found that junior sister Su's temper is too bad. If we team up, I'm afraid it will cause a lot of trouble for no reason and affect the friendship with Xiao Wenyu. It's better not to team up. It's better, so I found a reason to leave first. I see. Shangguan Yingying nodded, Senior brother Lin, you are really smart. Fortunately, you didn't team up. Otherwise, there would be a lot of trouble. Yes, I can see that too. Lin Mingtao sighed, it's clear that you team up with them to help them. However, junior sister Su only throws a tantrum and doesn't know how to be grateful. I also feel that Huifan is helpless. However, junior sister Su has always been coaxed by everyone. I'm afraid she is used to it and forgot what situation she is in. As he said, Lin Mingtao couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, Junior sister Bailey, don't be too angry. It's not good for your health. Just ignore it in the future. It's not worth it to be angry. Thank you for your concern, senior brother Lin. I understand. Bailey Hongzhuang showed a smile and cupped her hands. I didn't expect that it's already so late. We planned to stay here for the night but we didn't expect to meet you. Was to meet you. If we encounter an army of skeletons, the more people we have, the safer we will be. We will leave tomorrow morning. Lin Mingtao suggested. He knew when to advance and when to retreat. On one hand, he let them feel relieved. On the other hand, he didn't want to offend Su Yingxue and the others. He knew that they might reject his suggestion to team up. Therefore, he directly suggested to team up for the night and leave tomorrow. This made it impossible for them to reject him. This method also didn't make them feel the slightest bit of ill will. It was really amazing. Chapter 3964. It was getting late, and the skeleton army would appear soon. Even if they refused, Lin Mingtao and the others would not go far away. If they encountered the skeletons, they would have to face them together. It was better to form a team and express goodwill. Listening to Ren Ziheng's words, Lin Mingtao's face suddenly showed a smile. That's good. I didn't expect that I would be lucky enough to form a team with the most famous team in the inner hall. It would be something to be proud of. Senior brother Lin, you're too polite. Di Beichen said slowly, in terms of qualifications, you are the senior. In terms of showing off, it should be us showing off. Junior brother Di, you don't have to comfort me. I'm very clear about my own capabilities. Lin Mingtao chuckled. Although I have been in the Penglai Inner Hall for a long time, my achievements and gains are definitely incomparable to yours. I don't need to think to know that your future is limitless. If there is a good development in the future, I hope you can give me a chance. He had always known that this world looked at strength, not seniority. No matter how much seniority one had, if one did not have enough strength, it would be useless. If he took advantage of his seniority in front of such potential cultivators, he would be digging his own grave. He would not be so stupid. Senior brother Lin, let's improve together. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Lin Mingtao nodded. Junior sister Bailey, what you said is right. Let's improve together. Night gradually fell, and the entire land was plunged into thick darkness. Everything around became quiet. There was no other sound except for the slight sound of the wind. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had a dignified look on their faces. They quietly looked around, guarding against the appearance of the skeleton army at any time. Everyone could not help but pay attention to their feet, afraid that the skeleton army would appear under their feet. If they were not careful, the possibility of losing their lives was very high. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but look at Lin Mingtao and the others during this process. It turned out that all the cultivators who came to this training place would automatically fall into silence at night. Everyone showed the same expression. Come to think of it, this was the biggest characteristic of the training ground. However, after Bailey Hongzhuang and the others waited for a period of time, they discovered that there was no movement. There was also no sound in the surroundings. Everyone couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Could it be that their luck today was so good that they didn't encounter the skeleton army? Senior apprentice brother Ren, didn't you say that it's easy to encounter the skeleton army here? How come we haven't met them since the first day we met them? Shangguan Ying's face was full of confusion. She wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to gain experience and accumulate some points. She didn't expect the situation to be completely different from what she had imagined. Actually, Ren Ziheng is right. It is indeed very easy to encounter the skeleton army here. However, I have also discovered that the probability of encountering the skeleton army has decreased a lot over the past few days. In the past, if you were unlucky, you could encounter them every day. Therefore, very few cultivators dared to come here, Lin Mingtao said. Ren Ziheng nodded. The situation this time is indeed different from before. I don't know what the problem is. Chapter 3965. Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen, and Mo Yunjue couldn't help but look at each other. There must be a reason why the skeleton army, which had been appearing frequently before, suddenly didn't appear often now. There must be a reason. Could it be that these skeletons were evolving, so the frequency of their appearance decreased a lot? Recalling their previous conjectures and connecting all these situations, there was a certain possibility. We didn't encounter the skeleton army here, but there should be in other places, right? When Ziren looked at Ren Ziheng and others, logically speaking, most of the skeleton army should have appeared at this time. Since we didn't appear here, does it mean that they won't appear? Hearing this, Ren Ziheng thought for a moment, and looked at Lin Mingtao. He said, generally speaking, although the skeleton army may appear at any time, they still have a certain time pattern to their appearance. If they don't appear at this time, then the probability of them appearing will be much smaller. In that case, why don't we go to other places to take a look? Maybe we can encounter the skeleton army. Wen Ziren said. Shangguan Ying nodded in agreement. Anyway, it's useless to stay here all the time. Why don't we go to other places to take a look? If we encounter the skeleton army, we can also take the opportunity to earn some points. What's more, there won't be any great danger approaching from the periphery. This should work. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Ren Ziheng and others. Senior Ren, do you think this plan is feasible? Logically speaking, this is not a problem. Ren Ziheng responded. Indeed, we can go around. If we encounter the skeleton army, we can take the opportunity to deal with some of them. Chu Jinfeng nodded. It was already the 4th day since they came here. Except for the first day, they had been in a state of rest. He also wanted to exercise his muscles and bones. After all, they were not as afraid of the appearance of the skeleton army as before. On the contrary, with their current strength, they could already deal with most of the skeleton army, so they didn't need to hide at all. Instead, they could face them head-on. When Lin Mingtao and others saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and others wanted to find the skeleton army, they couldn't help but show a hint of surprise on their faces. A person with great skill would be bold. This saying was absolutely true. Many cultivators came to the training grounds because they had no other choice. On one hand, they wanted to earn points. On the other hand, they wanted to fulfill the sex requirements. However, after everyone arrived, they all hoped that they would not encounter the skeleton army. Teams like Bailey Hongzhuang and the others who were prepared to look for the skeleton army were extremely rare. So that's how it is. Let's move out then. Di Beichen made the final decision. His gaze then fell on Lin Mingtao. Senior brother Lin, we plan to take a look around. What are your plans? Lin Mingtao put away the surprised look on his face and smiled. We have already agreed before that we will team up tonight. So, wherever you go, we will naturally go with you. If we encounter the skeleton army, we can take care of each other. That's good. Di Baichen smiled. Let's go together. Chapter 3966. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest listened to their surroundings as they walked. They only hoped that they would be able to hear the movements of the skeleton army. Then, they would have found their target. However, they had not heard any movements along the way and everyone could not help but feel disappointed. The skeleton army is usually so active. Why did they all hide when we wanted to earn some points? They really don't give us any face. Shengguan Yingying sighed. Junior sister Shengguan, if anyone else heard what you said, they would probably vomit 3 liters of blood. Lin Mingtao smiled. Why? Because comparisons are odious. Everyone could not help but chuckle when they heard this. Baisher walked next to Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, Baisher's figure was even taller. Its white fur, which was mixed with the color of blood, made it look even more majestic. At first glance, one could tell that it was out of the ordinary. Lin Mingtao's group also had contracted beasts. However, none of them could compare to Baisher's majestic appearance. Master, there seems to be movement in front. Just then, Baisher's voice suddenly rang out next to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang paused in her steps when she heard this. She looked at Baisher in astonishment and asked, "Are you sure?" Baisher nodded. "There's movement in front of us. If I'm not wrong, it should be the appearance of the skeleton army." Bailey Hongzhuang had no doubts when she saw how certain Baisher was. In terms of perception, Baisher was the most powerful. Baisher had never made a mistake in this aspect. Since it said that there was something, there must be something. Let's go ahead and take a look. Baisher says that there is a skeleton army there. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Baichen and the rest and shared this news with them. Really? Lin Mingtao asked in astonishment. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. Baisher's words can't be wrong. Shengguan Yingying also spoke up, "That's right, White Lion's judgment in this aspect is the most accurate. He has never been wrong before. It seems like there really is something interesting up ahead. Let's hurry over and take a look." Lin Mingtao's gaze could not help but land on Baisher. His eyes were filled with amazement. "Junior sister Bailey, your contracted beast looks extraordinary at first glance. I didn't expect its perception to be so powerful. It's really amazing." From the moment he saw Baisher, Lin Mingtao had already noticed it. It was impossible not to notice such a majestic contract beast. The White Lion is indeed very talented in this aspect, especially in places like the forest or training grounds. Its judgment is much more accurate than ours. The White Lion was a beast king in the first place, and had an innate ability in this aspect. Even if they had broken through to the Starlight Realm, they still could not compare to it. "I see." Lin Mingtao nodded and immediately said, "Then let's go ahead and take a look. If we encounter a skeleton army, we can earn more points." In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest increased their speed and flew ahead. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest turned into a gust of wind and disappeared from their original spot at lightning speed. As expected, as they got closer and closer to the front, they also felt the intense fluctuations. Chapter 3967. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang's people saw the situation in front of them, they couldn't help but be stunned again. "No way, how can it be so coincidental?" Shengguan Yingying secretly clicked her tongue. Wasn't this coincidence too exaggerated? If it wasn't for her and Xiren's suggestion, she would have suspected that someone had arranged this on purpose. Not only Shengguan Yingying, but Bailey Hongzhuang's people were also speechless after seeing the situation. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. This sentence really makes sense. At this moment, Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but sigh. In their line of sight, Xiao Wenyu's group was surrounded by the skeleton army. At this moment, they were struggling to hold on. It was obvious that they were no match for the skeleton army. Without any help, they could lose their lives at any time. Seeing this scene, I seem to recall the situation on the first day of the training ground. Chu Jinfeng was speechless. Apart from the change of location, this scene was exactly the same as when they rescued Xiao Wenyu's group. Hong Zhuang, do you think senior brother Zhao's group is so unlucky because of Su Yingxue? Shangguan Yingying looked helpless. We've been looking for the skeletons, but nothing happened. Senior brother Zhao's group only wanted to avoid the skeletons, but they were surrounded by them every time. I think they must be very depressed. I'm afraid no one else has such luck. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. This should be what they were afraid of, but when it came, they couldn't avoid it. After seeing this scene, Lin Mingtao's expression was a little funny. This world was too coincidental. Even he found it hard to believe. However, after seeing this scene, no one moved. They just looked at Xiao Wenyu's group who were fighting with the skeletons in front of them. Thousands of thoughts ran through their minds. Lin Mingtao had already made up his mind. Since he decided to get close to Bailey Hongzhuang's group, this idea wouldn't waver. Unless Bailey Hongzhuang's group suggested it, he would definitely not take the initiative to rescue Xiao Wenyu's group. This was because all his previous efforts would be in vain. Therefore, he and his team just stood there and waited for Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to make a decision. The feelings of Ren Ziheng and the rest were also very complicated. Previously, they had saved Su Yingxue and the rest because of their friendship as fellow disciples. Never had they expected that not only would Su Yingxue not be grateful, she would even bite the hand that fed her. That was too much. Even they didn't know what to do now. For a moment, Ren Ziheng and the others couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. The person Su Yingxue had offended was Bailey Hongzhuang, so how this matter should be decided was naturally up to Bailey Hongzhuang. Feeling everyone's attention, Bailey Hongzhuang's dark eyes flashed with a hint of contemplation, but her beautiful face was very calm. "Let's go back," Bailey Hongzhuang said faintly. Previously, she had already done her best to rescue Su Yingxue and the rest. Now that things had come to this, it could be said that they had brought it upon themselves. There was really no need for her to do anything. Moreover, she didn't think that she was a kind person. She wouldn't rescue people again and again. Whether they lived or died didn't matter to her at all. Chapter 3968. Xiao Wenyu was so depressed that he was about to die. He felt that the possibility of encountering skeletons inside was very high, so he decided to head to the periphery. This way, their safety would be increased by a lot. According to their speed, they should be able to walk a very long distance in such a long time, but Su Yingxue and He Bingrui were clearly in a bad mood, so their walking speed was very slow. Although he showed that he was unwilling to pay attention to them, they were still members of the team no matter what. Furthermore, there were only 6 of them left. If they didn't have Su Yingxue and He Bingrui with them, it would be difficult for the 4 of them to leave the training ground. Under such circumstances, they didn't walk far, but they didn't expect their luck to be so bad that they would encounter the skeleton army at night. 2 days ago, they had been following Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, hoping to encounter the skeleton army and earn some points, but they didn't get any. Now that they had separated from them, they coincidentally encountered the skeleton army, so one could imagine how depressed they were. With such a large skeleton army, it would be difficult for the 6 of them to deal with it. He only wanted to get out of this predicament, but the speed at which the skeletons appeared was too fast, so he couldn't make it in time. At this moment, Xiao Wenyu suddenly noticed Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest rushing over, and his eyes instantly lit up. At the same time, he also noticed that Lin Mingtao and the rest were together with Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. He couldn't help but be astonished. Could it be that after Lin Mingtao separated from them, he went to find Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest? This was too unbelievable. Thinking of this, he wanted to ask Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest for help, but before he could say anything, he saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest preparing to leave. Seeing this scene, his heart couldn't help but turn cold. It seemed that Su Yingshue's previous actions had really offended Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that they were in danger, Bailey Hongzhuang was also planning to leave them in the lurch. This was hope that they had encountered with great difficulty. If Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest left just like that, they wouldn't be able to break out of the encirclement and could only lose their lives here. Thinking of this, even though he found it hard to speak, Xiao Wenyu still shouted, "Junior sister Bailey, help us." Following Xiao Wenyu's words, Su Yingxue then realized that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were not far in front of them, and her expression instantly became complicated. She didn't expect to meet them at this moment, and this coincidence made her feel indescribably gloomy. If he wasn't in a difficult situation, he simply wouldn't want to pay attention to Bailey Hongzhuang. But now that he was in danger, if he was a little careless, he might lose his life. But if he spoke, it would be really shameful. After hearing Xiao Wenyu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but pause slightly, but she didn't answer. Yingxue, quickly ask them for help. He Bingrue hurriedly shouted. Her face was pale, and she couldn't hold on under the encirclement of the skeleton army. There were wounds all over her body, and she could die at any moment. However, Su Yingxue didn't reply. Yingxue, if you don't ask them for help, we will lose our lives here. He Bingrue hurriedly shouted. Chapter 3969. Su Yingxue originally didn't want to lower her head, but the situation was indeed life-threatening. Even if she didn't want to lower her head, she had no choice. Thus, she could only cry out unwillingly, "Junior sister Bailey, please save us." Following Su Yingshue's words, Bailey Hongzhuang stopped in her tracks and her gaze landed on the skeleton army. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, Sheng Huaningying and the rest couldn't help but be astonished. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang was really planning to save Su Yingxue? Although Su Yingxue was the one who had called for help, according to their understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang, this shouldn't be her personality. She had always been a person of her word. Since she had made a decision, she definitely wouldn't change it. When Su Yingxue and the rest saw Bailey Hongzhuang, who was originally preparing to leave, suddenly stop because of her cry for help, intense joy couldn't help but appear in their eyes. "Yingxue, Bailey Hongzhuang has agreed to save us." Intense joy flashed across He Bingrue's face. She originally thought that her luck wasn't good today and she was going to lose her life here. She didn't expect that at such a crucial moment, there would be a turn for the better. This made her extremely happy. Su Yingshue's face also revealed a trace of a smile. She couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang with an additional trace of disdain. She didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to think so highly of her. She had only called for help and the former had stopped in his tracks. This didn't make her feel that she had lost face. Instead, she felt that she had gained some face. "Hongzhuang, what do you plan to do?" Sheng Huaningying couldn't help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze landed behind Su Yingxue. This was because he realized that there was a type of small black flower growing out of the skeleton army. In the past, he had never seen such a small flower appear when the skeleton army appeared. All along, he had been searching for the plants that appeared in the training grounds, but he hadn't found anything. After searching for a period of time, he was even more certain that this training ground was completely barren. He couldn't find any trace of plants at all. Just when she thought that her judgment might be wrong, she suddenly discovered that there were actually black flowers appearing in the places where the skeleton army appeared. This made her eyes light up. Perhaps, this was what she had been looking for all this while. Everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's silent appearance and thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was considering whether to save them or not. Di Beichen couldn't help but follow Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze and saw Su Yingxue first. However, he understood Bailey Hongzhuang too well. Bailey Hongzhuang definitely wouldn't have any sympathy for someone like Su Yingxue, so she naturally wouldn't stop because of her cry for help. Therefore, something else must have attracted Bailey Hongzhuang's attention. After carefully observing for a while, Di Beichen also discovered the small black flower. This small flower wasn't very obvious in the darkness and was blocked by so many skeletons. If it wasn't for the fact that they were on high ground, they wouldn't have been able to discover the existence of the small black flower. Thinking about what Bailey Hongzhuang had been looking for recently, perhaps this small black flower was the catalyst. At this moment, Di Beichen already understood. Looks like my wife has found what she wanted. Beichenchen's lips curled into a charming arc as he smiled faintly. Chapter 3970. You really know me well. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Her expression was filled with joy and pride. In this world, it was a great joy to have someone who could understand her so well. Of course. Di Beichen raised his eyebrows and held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. He then walked forward. Since we've discovered her, let's take action. We can't miss this opportunity. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently and her footsteps became firm. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's actions, Shangguan Yingying and the rest could not help but feel puzzled. What are Di Beichen and Hongzhuang trying to do? Ren Zimei and the rest were also puzzled. They could not understand what they were trying to do. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had such tacit understanding. It was as if this was something that could be easily seen through. However, they could not understand what was going on. Then what should we do? Ren Zimei spread out her hands and looked inquisitively at Xiren. I don't know. Xiren shrugged, let's follow them and find out. Hongzhuang won't save Su Yingxue. Mo Yinjue slowly said, if they're going over now, they must have discovered something. That's why they're doing this. Although he did not know what Bailey Hongzhuang had seen, he was certain that his judgment was correct. Hearing Mo Yinjue's words, Shangguan Yingying nodded, I think so too. Su Yingxue is so annoying. She'll only have peace if she's dead. Although Lin Mingtao and the rest did not understand what was going on, since Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had gone over, they naturally followed them to take a look. No matter what choice Bailey Hongzhuang made, they were willing to help. We're saved. We're saved. Originally, He Bingrue had been bitterly holding on, as if she could no longer hold on in the next moment, and could lose her life at any time. However, when she saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had decided to help, she only felt that her body was filled with strength, and she immediately forced the surrounding skeletons to disperse. Xiao Wenyu and the others also showed a relaxed expression. Originally, when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the others turn around and leave, their hearts turned cold. They thought that they would have to accompany these skeletons forever in the future. They didn't expect that there would be such a favorable turn in the end. How could they not be happy? However, Xiao Wenyu still had some doubts in his heart. It was hard to imagine that Bailey Hongzhuang actually stopped because of Su Yingxue's cry for help. It was truly unbelievable. As Bailey Hongzhuang got closer, she saw the little black flower clearly. The flower had a total of 5 petals and was very small. In this pitch-black darkness, it was not eye-catching at all. If she hadn't coincidentally discovered Xiao Hua today, perhaps no one would have noticed Xiao Hua's appearance when they were surrounded by the army of skeletons on a normal day. This little flower grew in the places where the skeleton soldiers appeared. In this lifeless darkness, it swayed and was filled with a mysterious power. Beichen, do you think this little black flower has existed before? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly and tilted her head to look at Di Beichen. Di Beichen thought for a moment, according to this situation, I'm afraid it has always existed. It's just that we didn't notice it. Chapter 3971. Di Baichen nodded, it's not impossible. Every time the skeleton army appears, everyone is thinking of ways to deal with the skeleton army and no one has the time to pay attention to anything else. Furthermore, no one would have thought that this plant would actually grow in a place where the skeleton army appears. It's normal that we didn't notice it. Di Baichen's eyes flashed with a sigh. If they hadn't coincidentally discovered it today, they wouldn't have noticed the difference in the place where the skeleton soldiers appeared. These little black flowers appeared next to the skeleton soldiers, one after another. There were quite a number of them. However, hidden in the darkness, it was easy to miss them. These little black flowers are really strange. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned, her dark eyes flashing with confusion. After the skeleton army disappeared, these little black flowers would also disappear. That's why we didn't notice them. That's right, these little black flowers follow the skeleton army. The things in the training grounds are really mysterious. Even these plants are different. Di Baichen sighed. Baichen, what are you talking about? Regarding this matter, what do you plan to do? When Xiren and the rest quickly caught up. When they saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen stop, they couldn't help but ask. Di Baichen smiled faintly, we didn't come down here to save people. When he said this, Lin Mingtao and the rest were slightly stunned. Mo Yinjue, when Xiren and the rest revealed a knowing smile. Look, are there black flowers next to the skeleton soldiers? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Hearing this, everyone was slightly stunned. Their gazes then turned towards the skeleton soldiers. When they saw it, everyone's faces were filled with surprise. That's right, there really are black flowers. Shengguan exclaimed, you can see this too. I didn't even notice that there were flowers on the ground. Ren Zihang's face was filled with amazement. I've stayed in this training ground for so long, but I've never noticed that when the skeleton soldiers appeared, there would be black flowers below. If you hadn't reminded me, I don't know when I would have discovered this. Yeah, we've never noticed it before. Did it just appear now or has it always been there before? Ren Zimei couldn't help but wonder. She had never discovered this before. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. I don't know. I didn't notice it the first 2 times. But when I was standing on the hillside just now, I happened to notice the little black flower. I was very surprised. Junior Sister Bailey, could this little black flower be the catalyst that you're looking for? Chu Jinfeng's eyes lit up. During this time, they had been helping Bailey Hongzhuang search for the guiding medicine, but they had not found anything. They had even thought that this training ground was completely barren and that it was impossible for any guiding medicine to appear. They never thought that a black flower would appear. This was the only plant that they had seen in this training ground. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a small smile. I had the same guess but I'm not sure if it's true. We'll only know after we bring it back. Chapter 3972. Indeed. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. This was also one of the problems she was thinking about. Wife, I'll go with you. With our battle power, it shouldn't be a problem to go deep into that place, Di Baichen said slowly. I'll go with you guys too. Mo Yinjue also said, that place is very close to the center and it's more dangerous. Although the 2 of you aren't weak, if you're surrounded, there's still a certain amount of risk. If I go with you guys, it'll be much safer. As for the others, don't go any deeper. Hearing Mo Yinjue's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen looked at each other. Di Baichen then said, all right, then it's decided. The next moment, Di Baichen turned around and looked at Ren Zihang and the rest, the 3 of us will go to the center to pick the black flower. You guys deal with the skeletons outside. Then you guys have to be careful. Ren Zihang's face was filled with concern, it's very dangerous inside. Don't worry, we'll be careful. When Xiao Wenyu and the rest saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest coming down, they were hoping that they could quickly rescue them. However, they realized that they had stopped and didn't come to rescue them immediately. They couldn't help but feel astonished. Thinking of this, Xiao Wenyu couldn't help but shout, "Ren Ziheng, come and help us." Now that they were deeply surrounded by the skeleton army, everyone was gradually scattered by the skeleton army. They weren't together at all. One could imagine how difficult it was for one person to face the pressure of skeletons from all directions. Even though he had already used all his skills, he still felt that it was extremely difficult. The long battle had even created a feeling that it was difficult to continue. Hearing Xiao Wenyu's words, Ren Ziheng couldn't help but frown. In fact, it was Su Yingxue and Xiao Wenyu who had been fooling around. Xiao Wenyu and the rest didn't do anything wrong. It was a pity that they were now implicated by Su Yingxue and Xiao Wenyu. The last time he rescued them, he had already brought a lot of trouble to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. This time, he couldn't repeat the same mistake. He felt very troubled in his heart. Bailey Hongzhuang, who was about to set off, noticed this scene and couldn't help but say, "Senior brother Ren, go and help senior brother Xiao." Hearing this, Ren Ziheng was slightly stunned. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment, as if doubting if he had heard wrongly. "Senior brother Zhao's condition is very bad. I'm afraid he won't be able to hold on for much longer. If we don't go and help, we'll lose our lives here." Bailey Hongzhuang spoke again. Knowing that he did not hear wrongly, Ren Ziheng also nodded his head, his brows filled with joy, "I'll go help immediately." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Although she didn't have much sympathy, she wouldn't casually implicate others. From the beginning to the end, senior brother Xiao didn't show any hostility towards her. On the contrary, she also felt that senior brother Xiao was a very easy person to get along with. It was just that with Su Yingshue's existence, senior brother Xiao was stuck in the middle. Now that senior brother Xiao was in danger, she naturally didn't mind lending a helping hand. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, everyone knew what to do. Her attitude was very simple, which was to ignore Su Yingxue and He Bingrui. As for the others, they could save them. Chapter 3973. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen, and Mo Yinjue set off in the direction of the skeleton soldier. They had originally planned to ignore Su Yingxue, but the skeleton soldier was right behind her, so they still had to head in that direction. When Su Yingxue saw that Mo Yinjue and Bailey Hongzhuang had also come to rescue her, she couldn't help but be overjoyed. Even though she felt that Mo Yinjue's previous actions were overboard, she still couldn't help but feel her heart flutter when she saw his handsome face. This kind of man was simply every woman's dream lover. No matter how heartless he was, he still moved people's hearts. "Bingrui, let's hold on a little longer. Mo Yinjue and the rest are about to come and save us," Su Yingxue said emotionally. He Bingrui nodded. "I didn't think that he would still be willing to come and save us at this time. Looks like he's not that heartless after all." "I don't understand either." Su Yingshue's face revealed a vexed expression. She really couldn't understand Mo Yinjue. Every time she was about to lose all hope, he would suddenly give her some hope. It really made her feel vexed. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest got closer and closer to Su Yingxue and He Bingrui, the two of them also became more and more excited. As cultivators of the Starlight Realm, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest cleared the area with just one move. The effect was very shocking. The surrounding skeletons fell in large batches. The three beasts and Di Beichen's contracted beasts also helped to clean up the area, so the three of them didn't slow down at all. However, just when Su Yingxue and He Bingrui thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were coming to rescue them, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest just passed by them and walked behind them. Seeing this scene, Su Yingxue and He Bingrui were stunned. Their eyes were filled with astonishment as they wondered if they had seen wrongly. However, reality told them that they were not wrong. This was because Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two had turned around when they were still tens of meters away from them. Very soon, they realized that the other party had already started fighting with the skeleton soldiers. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two fought with the skeleton soldiers while the four contracted beasts took the opportunity to pluck the black flowers. It was most convenient for Xiao He and Xiao Bai to pick them up. After picking them off, they directly put them into their Qinquan bags. When he looked at it from afar, he did not notice it. However, when he looked closer, he realized that there were many black flowers. He immediately picked them quickly. If this thing was the medicinal catalyst, then they would need quite a lot of it. How could this be? Su Yingxue looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two in a daze, unable to react in time. On the other side, Xiao Wenyu and the others had clearly been rescued, but the two of them were left unattended. Yingxue, what's going on? He Bingrui was also dumbfounded. She had barely managed to hold on until Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest got close, so why didn't the other party have any intention of rescuing them? I don't know either. Su Yingshue's expression was a little ugly. A feeling faintly flashed in her mind. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang had purposely come here to humiliate her and not to rescue them, but to provoke her? If that was really the case, then her joy just now was just wishful thinking. Chapter 3974. Hearing He Bingrui's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two couldn't help but turn their gazes over. When they saw He Bingrui's anxious expression, they found it funny. He Bingrui, it's already extremely benevolent of me to not kill you. Do you still think I will save you? Di Bei Chen's eyes were indifferent as he looked at He Bingrui and Xiao Wenyu. If it weren't for Ren Ziheng and Xiao Wenyu's face, he would have directly dealt with the two people who spoke rudely to Bailey Hongzhuang. Mo Yinjue also calmly retracted his gaze. The evils we bring upon ourselves are the hardest to bear. The two of them loved to fool around, and even though they were spared, they still couldn't escape the fate of death. It was obvious that even the heavens wanted them dead. Su Yingxue and He Bingrui, who were originally filled with hope, turned pale when they heard Di Beichen and Mo Yinjue's words. Their expressions were extremely ugly. All of their hope turned into bubbles in an instant, and an indescribable despair spread out in their hearts. They were already at the end of their rope. It was only because they saw a glimmer of hope that they unleashed all of their strength. However, once they lost the support from behind, only death awaited them. How could this be? Su Yingxue looked at Mo Yinjue in a daze. The latter's words were no different from stabbing a knife into her heart. All of her infatuation had turned into pain. She was actually such a loathsome person in this man's heart. Yingxue, what should we do? If this goes on, we will die. He Bingrui looked at Su Yingxue helplessly, and she felt a wave of regret. If they had known this would be the outcome, they wouldn't have treated Bailey Hongzhuang like that. Otherwise, they wouldn't have ended up in such a state. If they had teamed up with Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, not only would they not have been in any danger, they could even earn a large amount of points. Normally, they wouldn't have had such a good opportunity. However, all of this had been destroyed by these beasts with their own hands. Only then did Su Yingxue come back to her senses, and she couldn't help but look forward. When she noticed that Xiao Wenyu and the rest had been rescued, she couldn't help but shout, "Senior brother Xiao, quickly save us. We can't hold on much longer." Only then did He Bingrui remember that Xiao Wenyu and the others were still here. She immediately shouted, "Senior brother Xiao, I beg you." Xiao Wenyu and the rest who were already in a safe place had complicated expressions when they heard Su Yingxue and He Bingrui's cries for help. For a moment, they just stood on the spot and didn't move. Shengguan Yingying glanced at Xiao Wenyu's group and said, "We won't stop you if you want to rescue them. However, don't expect us to help you if you encounter danger again." They had saved Xiao Wenyu and the rest on account that they hadn't done anything wrong. However, they didn't have any sympathy for Su Yingxue and the rest. If Xiao Wenyu and the rest insisted on staying with Su Yingxue, they wouldn't bother with them anymore. Xiao Wenyu and the others weren't fools. They naturally knew the attitude of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. If they went there now, then they would really offend Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. One had to know that this was the second time he had saved their lives. Ren Ziheng and the rest didn't say anything. This matter had to be decided by Xiao Wenyu and the rest. However, Xiao Wenyu and the rest stood on the spot and didn't go forward to rescue them. This action had already made their stance clear. Chapter 3975. Su Yingxue and He Bingrui had placed all their hopes on Xiao Wenyu. He was their last hope. However, when they saw Xiao Wenyu's indifference, their hearts gradually turned cold. His attitude was very clear, and that was that he would not come to save them. A strong hatred spread in Su Yingxue's heart. It was all because of Bailey Hongzhuang. If it wasn't for that damned Bailey Hongzhuang, things wouldn't have ended up like this. Bailey Hongzhuang, it's all because of you. Su Yingxue glared at Bailey Hongzhuang hatefully, her eyes flashing with anger and jealousy. She had only verbally offended Bailey Hongzhuang, which wasn't a big deal, but it was enough to force her to such a state. What right did she have? Hearing Su Yingxue's angry words, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but turn her head. Compared to the former's hysteria, she was calm and indifferent. I said before, you will be taught a lesson. Facing Bailey Hongzhuang's nonchalant words, Su Yingxue was unable to restrain her anger. She immediately wanted to charge in Bailey Hongzhuang's direction. I'm going to kill you. However, just as Su Yingxue was about to move in Bailey Hongzhuang's direction, she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her body. She lowered her head in a daze and realized that her chest had been pierced by a sharp sword. She looked at He Bingrui who was behind her in astonishment, her face filled with disbelief. Bingrui, you. Su Yingxue pointed at He Bingrui, unable to recover from the shock. She had no idea why He Bingrui would treat her like this. Why? He Bingrui pulled out her sharp sword. Facing Su Yingxue's question, she could only remain silent. She then turned her gaze to Bailey Hongzhuang. Junior sister Bailey, I've already killed Su Yingxue for you. Can you let me live? Su Yingxue fell to the ground with a loud bang and was immediately torn into pieces by the skeletons that rushed up. Before she died, her eyes were still glaring at He Bingrui. Obviously, she had never thought that her most trusted friend would stab her with a sword. This feeling of betrayal made her extremely uncomfortable. This scene was clearly beyond everyone's expectations. No one thought that He Bingrui would do such a thing in order to save her own life. For a moment, everyone only felt that this He Bingrui was also an extremely terrifying person. That was her best friend. Previously, the two of them had been fighting against a common enemy. However, at this moment of life and death, she had gone overboard. After seeing this scene, everyone suddenly felt that although Su Yingxue's temper was annoying, people like He Bingrui were more terrifying. He betrayed them without hesitation. Who would dare to be teammates with such a person? He had to be prepared to be betrayed at any time. Everyone couldn't help but look at Xiao Wenyu. They didn't know how he felt as the captain. Xiao Wenyu instantly broke out in cold sweat. He had been teammates with He Bingrui for such a long time, but he had never known that He Bingrui had such a personality. He couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. Junior sister Bailey, I beg you. I don't want to die. He Bingrui shouted. The skeletons in front of her made her feel despair. With just her strength, it was impossible for her to walk out. Chapter 3976. If He Bingrue had persisted until the end with Su Yingxue, perhaps she would have admired her. However, her current actions had undoubtedly proved that He Bingrue was truly a despicable person. Such a person's death was not to be regretted. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, He Bingrue's face also showed a deep sense of despair. She originally thought that by helping Bailey Hongzhuang to vent her anger, the latter would let her off. She never thought that she would not achieve the effect she wanted. Ah! A blood-curdling scream came from He Bingrue's mouth. The surrounding skeletons had already closed in on her and directly broke her arm. Bailey Hongzhuang retracted her gaze. Sometimes, if you take a wrong step, you can never turn back. Even if He Bingrue regretted it now, it was useless because such an ending was destined from the start. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two were quickly surrounded by the skeleton army. The skeleton army was very strong, but the three of them were not weak either. Therefore, even though they were surrounded, they did not show any signs of being unable to fight back. The others fought with the skeleton army at the periphery, taking advantage of this opportunity to earn more points. However, everyone's gaze still fell on Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two. Once they discovered that they were in danger, they would definitely go to their aid at the first moment. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two's strength was very strong. After plucking a certain number of black flowers, they did not continue to stay and immediately retreated to the periphery. Only when they reached the periphery did everyone heave a sigh of relief. You guys came back safe and sound. At least there was no danger. Shangguan Yingying sighed. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, yes, we came back safe and sound. Even though they were not weak, under such a high-intensity battle, the consumption of their primary energy was very shocking. Therefore, it was not suitable for them to drag on for too long. When the skeleton army saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had returned safely, they were obviously very dissatisfied. Immediately, they launched a wave of attacks towards Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. However, their team today could be said to be extraordinarily large. There were no less than 20 experts present. Even if the skeleton army launched an attack, they were still unable to seriously injure them. Following the failure of 2 consecutive attacks, the night was already half over, and the skeleton army gradually left. After the skeleton army left, Bailey Hongzhuang took a closer look. Sure enough, after the skeleton army disappeared, the black flower disappeared as well. It was as if it had never appeared. Those guys are finally gone. I'm so tired. Shangguan Yingying sat limply on the ground, rubbing her other arm with one hand. She had been waving her sword the whole night, and her arm was sore. Xiren sat down beside Shangguan Yingying and began to massage her shoulders. You can have a good rest now. Bailey Hongzhuang also sat down. She did not feel very tired. This kind of intensity was already a routine reform for her, so she did not feel that it was too tiring. I really didn't expect Su Yingxue to die in the hands of He Bingrue. This ending really makes one sigh. Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but shake her head. Her face was full of emotions. In the end, even she was shocked. Chapter 3977. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately took out the black flower she had plucked earlier. She was very curious about the black flower and wanted to know if it was the catalyst she had been looking for all this time. If it was, then the power of darkness would no longer be a threat to them in the future. Ren Ziheng and the others were currently using Bailey Hongzhuang's medicine. No matter how careful they were, they could not avoid injuries after a night of battle. When he saw Bailey Hongzhuang examine the black flower, Lin Mingtao could not help but ask, "Junior sister Bailey, is the catalyst you've been looking for this black flower?" Bailey Hongzhuang withdrew her gaze from the black flower and turned to look at Lin Mingtao. She shook her head, "I can't be sure right now. I need some time to study the characteristics of the black flower before I can determine it." Understood. Lin Mingtao nodded and smiled in admiration. Junior sister Bailey's eyesight is really good. You even noticed such a rare black flower. I've been training here for so long, but I've never noticed it. My eyesight is really bad. Lin Mingtao, you're right. I've been here for so long, but I've never noticed it, sighed Ren Ziheng. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled when she heard that. You're not doctors, so of course you wouldn't pay special attention to these things. It's just that I've been looking for it the entire time, which is why I noticed it today. If the black flower really is a catalyst for restraining the power of darkness, then that's interesting. So many people from the 100 Flowers sect have been searching for a catalyst here, but they've never found anything. Junior sister Bailey, you've only been here for the second time, and you've already discovered it. I'm sure they'll be furious when they find out. Chu Jinfeng seemed to have thought of something funny and could not help but chuckle. Everyone present could not help but chuckle when they heard Chu Jinfeng's words. It was just as Chu Jinfeng had said. If Bailey Hongzhuang had found it so easily, then the people from the 100 Flowers sect would indeed be depressed to death. The sky gradually brightened. After recovering her Yuan Qi, Bailey Hongzhuang did not plan on going anywhere else. She focused all her attention on the black flower. She had a vague premonition that the thing she was looking for was this black flower. Ren Ziheng, junior sister Bailey, thank you so much for your help yesterday. You've already saved us twice. I will never forget the favor of saving my life. Xiao Wenyu cupped his fists and bowed deeply to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. After being rescued the last time, he had been thinking about how he could repay this kindness. He never thought that before he could repay the previous kindness, he would be rescued by Bailey Hongzhuang and the others again. Senior brother Xiao, don't worry about it. It's only right for fellow disciples to help each other, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. I didn't expect you to save me twice in such a short period of time. I feel extremely ashamed. Xiao Wenyu sighed. His expression was filled with helplessness. Xiao Wenyu, don't take it to heart. In this training ground, we have always helped each other. This time, I will help you. Next time, you can help me, Ren Ziheng said with a smile. Xiao Wenyu smiled and nodded. If you need my help in the future, just let me know. Chapter 3978. Ren Zimei couldn't help but look at Xiao Wenyu. Originally, it was already very dangerous with only 6 people in their team. Now that they had lost 2 people, the 4 of them might not be able to hold on until they returned. Hearing Ren Zimei's words, Xiao Wenyu's expression was a little awkward. This was a big problem that he had been thinking about. Before Su Yingxue made a scene, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had already agreed to form a team with them until they left. However, after that incident, he didn't have the face to mention it again. However, now that there were only 4 people left in their team, what should they do was really a big problem. This. Xiao Wenyu said awkwardly, I don't know what to do for the time being. If senior brother Xiao doesn't mind, then form a team with us and go back when the teleportation formation opens, Di Beichen suddenly said. Hearing this, Xiao Wenyu and the others couldn't help but look at Di Beichen in surprise. They didn't expect Di Beichen to be willing to help them now. The next moment, the 4 of them couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. If Bailey Hongzhuang didn't want to, they naturally wouldn't stay here shamelessly. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded indifferently. Senior brother Xiao, if you don't mind, then stay. Sheng Guanying and the others also nodded. They had a very good impression of Xiao Wenyu and the others. The 4 of them weren't pretentious and didn't put on airs. No matter what happened, they had a lot of discussion and were very respectful to them. Forming a team with them was just for convenience and wouldn't drag them down. Now that they were going to stay in Penglai Palace for a while, there was no harm in making more friends. Xiao Wenyu and the others looked at each other and smiled happily. Thank you very much. At this time, Lin Mingtao also stood up and said, "It's already dawn. We'll leave first." "Lin Mingtao, you're leaving?" Xiao Wenyu looked at Lin Mingtao in surprise. He thought that Lin Mingtao and Bailey Hongzhuang had already formed a team. He didn't expect Lin Mingtao to leave at dawn. "Not bad." Lin Mingtao smiled and nodded. "Yesterday, I happened to meet Ren Ziheng and the others, so we temporarily formed a team. We said that it was only a temporary team. Now that the sun has risen, we naturally won't continue to disturb you." Listening to Lin Mingtao's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at him with a bit more appreciation. Ren Ziheng's previous judgment was really correct. This Lin Mingtao was really a shrewd person. His way of dealing with people made people feel very comfortable. "Ren Ziheng, junior brother D, farewell," Lin Mingtao cupped his fists and said. The cultivators behind him also said, "Farewell." Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also stood up and cupped their hands. "Goodbye, take care. Take care." Then, Lin Mingtao and his group slowly disappeared from the sight of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Bailey Hongzhuang continued to sit down. She needed some time to study this black flower. "Let's stay here and cultivate today. Hongzhuang wants to study the characteristics of this black flower. It's not too late for us to act and the skeleton army appears at night," Di Beichen said slowly. "No problem." Ren Ziheng nodded. "Anyway, it's the same no matter where during the day. We might as well save our energy. Xiao Wenyu, what do you think?" Chapter 3979. Bailey Hongzhuang focused all her attention on researching the black flower. This was the first time she had seen such a flower and there were no records of it in the medical books. Hence, she would need some time to understand the characteristics of the black flower. After Bailey Hongzhuang focused on researching the black flower, everyone else also focused on meditating and cultivating. After the great battle last night, taking advantage of this time to cultivate would greatly increase their powers. Time slowly passed and before they knew it, it was already evening. When the three beasts saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had been researching the flower, they could not help but come closer. "Master, how's your research coming along?" "At the moment, I've discovered some characteristics but there are still many things that we don't know. It's not something that can be figured out in a short period of time." Bailey Hongzhuang slowly replied. "Can this black flower be used as a medicinal ingredient?" Baisher asked curiously. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment before nodding. "It should be possible. There are also some special substances in it that I've never seen before. It's really interesting." Ever since she had arrived at this training ground, she had realized that everything that had appeared in this place was very foreign to her. Even the things that the black flower contained were things that she had never understood before. Just this point alone was already very shocking. After all, in order to study medicine, she had read through almost all the medical books. As long as it was about medicinal ingredients, there was almost nothing that she did not understand. Now, she had actually seen medicinal ingredients that she had never seen before. This was extremely rare. She believed that even if this black flower had fallen into the hands of the members of the 100 Flowers Order, they would not know anything about it either. The entire night was still peaceful. When Xiao Wenyu and the others realized this, they felt unusually helpless. Following beside Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, they were not worried about the appearance of the skeleton army. However, there was no trace of the skeleton army at all. When they had parted ways with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, they were worried that the skeleton army would appear. However, the skeleton army had appeared right where they were, making it impossible for them to hide. What kind of situation was this? In the following days, Bailey Hongzhuang continued to focus all her energy on studying the black flower. Every day, there would be some new progress. Ren Ziheng and the others couldn't help but admire Bailey Hongzhuang when they saw how persistent she was in her research. No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills were so amazing. Just this kind of persistence was not something an ordinary person could have. Where there was a will, there was a way. Just by looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's perseverance, one could tell that there was nothing she couldn't accomplish. A few days later, they encountered the skeleton army again. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Bailey Hongzhuang plucked a lot of black flowers. Now, she was almost certain that this black flower was the catalyst that she had been looking for. As long as it was combined with a few other medicinal herbs, she believed that it would be able to effectively restrain the power of darkness. Who would have thought that the solution to the unbreakable power of darkness would be in the appearance of the black flower when the skeleton army appeared? Nature was indeed incomparably mysterious. Junior Sister Bailey, does this mean that you've already researched a medicine that can completely restrain the power of darkness? Xiao Wenyu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. His heart was filled with shock. Chapter 3980. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly, although I'm not completely sure, I think it's pretty close. The prescription that she had researched before was already able to restrain the dark power, but it lacked a guiding herb, so it couldn't be completely cured. Now that the guiding herb had been found, she only needed to adjust the ratio and she believed that it would be successful. Hongzhuang, you're really amazing. Sheng Guanying couldn't hide the excitement on her face. You actually found a way to break the dark power so quickly. If this news is spread, I think everyone will be very surprised. Yes. Ren Zimei clapped her hands. This is a big problem that Penglai Island has been unable to solve for so many years. Now that you can completely solve it, this is great news for everyone. They had been troubled by this problem for too long. Many times, ordinary injuries were not fatal at all, but because of the existence of the dark power, the injuries could not be healed and they could only lose their lives. In fact, since Bailey Hongzhuang developed the healing medicine, the casualties of the practitioners had been reduced a lot. If it could be completely solved, it would be even better. I'll research it later. When it's completely developed, I'll give the prescription of the healing medicine to the Hall Master. At that time, everyone can use it. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled lightly. From the perspective of dealing with skeletons, they were all companions, so she naturally wouldn't be stingy. Then I have to thank Junior Sister Bailey first. Xiao Wenyu sighed. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and others were talking happily, they didn't notice that there was a group of people watching them not far from them. Senior Brotherly, there seems to be people from Penglai Palace in front. Did your contract beast hear what they were talking about? Li Yunyu asked. After Cheng Tirui and the contract beast communicated for a while, a thick shock appeared on his face. Senior Brotherly, the contract beast said that they were talking about the healing medicine that can restrain the dark power. As soon as these words came out, Li Yunyu couldn't help but be stunned. Healing medicine. Recently, Penglai Palace has become famous because of the healing medicine. What are they talking about? According to the content of their conversation, it seems that one of the women has developed a medicine that can completely suppress the power of darkness. She is very happy right now. Following Cheng Tirui's words, all the cultivators in the group could not help but be stunned. They looked at Li Yunyu in surprise, thinking that they had misheard. What did you say? A drug that can completely restrain the power of darkness? Li Yunyu's eyes were fixed on Cheng Tirui, his eyes filled with disbelief. Cheng Tirui nodded. That's right. That's what the contract beast heard. I heard that the reason why Penglai Palace launched such a healing medicine this time was because the prescription was submitted by a cultivator from Penglai Palace. Could it be that our luck is so good that we can meet that cultivator so coincidentally? A look of ecstasy appeared on Li Yunyu's face. If he could obtain that medicinal formula, it would be no different from a treasure. As long as he handed this prescription to the sect, his position in the sect would definitely rise, and he would become a cultivator with a lot of weight. Cheng Turui and the others also thought of the various benefits that this would bring, and their eyes became brighter. Chapter 3981. Let's go. Let's follow them and take a look. Li Yunyu waved his hand and immediately led the cultivators in the group forward. They had to listen carefully to what the other party had to say. As they gradually got closer, the other party's conversation entered their ears. The more they listened, the more excited they became. They never thought that their luck would be so good. Who goes there? Di Beichen suddenly shouted. When they heard Di Beichen's voice, the group's expressions changed and they looked around. They did not know that there were other cultivators around them. The group looked around cautiously. They had not noticed that there were other people around them. As Di Beichen spoke, Li Yunyu and the others no longer hid themselves. They slowly approached from behind and appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. They're from the Crimson Moon sect. Ren Ziheng and the others immediately recognized the clothes as belonging to the Crimson Moon sect. They immediately recalled what they had said earlier and could not help but sigh in their hearts. Li Yunyu's face rippled with a faint smile. That's right, we're from the Crimson Moon sect. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze could not help but fall upon one of the cultivators behind Li Yunyu. She never thought that she would bump into an acquaintance in a place like this. Xiao Nan. Bailey Hongzhuang cried out in surprise. This person had been their opponent in the past but they had not bumped into each other since. Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows as well. I never thought that I would bump into him here. It's really a small world indeed. This fellow can be considered as a fish that escaped the net. Since we've bumped into him now, let's take advantage of this opportunity to teach him a lesson. Ziren said. Xiao Nan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others in astonishment. He clearly did not know these fellows. Why did they act as if they were very familiar with him? Li Yunyu could not help but turn to look at Xiao Nan and asked, Xiao Nan, do you know them? Xiao Nan shook her head in puzzlement. I don't remember knowing them. Xiao Nan, you forget so quickly. Back then, you wholeheartedly helped Gao Hanchun and the others to intimidate us. Now that Gao Hanchun and the other two are dead, you have completely forgotten about us. However, we haven't forgotten about you, Shangguan Yingying said. Back then, after Gao Hanchun's faction had been destroyed, the three of them had wanted to join the Crimson Moon sect through Xiao Nan. Xiao Nan had even specially hired people from the 100 Flowers Gate to deal with them. She had never thought that she would end up losing the rice used to lure the chicken. Since then, they'd killed Gao Hanchun's group of 3, yet they hadn't seen Xiao Nan. They'd originally thought that they wouldn't have the chance to see her again, yet they just so happened to encounter her today. It was really fate. Xiao Nan, who was originally confused, suddenly widened his eyes after hearing this. His eyes flashed with deep shock. Those 4 guys back then, were you guys? That's right, it's us. Shangguan Yingying replied. You didn't look like this back then. Xiao Nan's face was full of surprise. You changed your appearance back then. It seems that you're not stupid, Ziren said with a faint smile. After thinking about this, Xiao Nan could not help but look at Li Yunyu. Senior brother Li, it seems that we didn't hear wrong. One of these 4 guys is an extremely powerful doctor. Back then, I saw Master Mo of the 100 Flowers Gate invite her to join with my own eyes. However, I didn't expect her to join the Penglai Palace in the end. Chapter 3982. As Xiao Nan's voice fell, the eyes of Li Yunyu and the others became brighter. They were originally very inclined to believe it, and now with Xiao Nan's affirmation, they could be sure that this group of people in front of them really had the prescription of the healing medicine. Li Yunyu, we have never had any grudges with you. What are you trying to do by coming out now? Ren Ziheng's eyes darkened and his voice carried a hint of threat. They were both people who frequented this training ground, so they had some understanding of each other. However, when they met each other, they usually went their own ways and had never interacted with each other. Now that the other party knew that they had the prescription, they must have harbored evil intentions. However, he still had to warn them. After all, the other party had many people in their group. Furthermore, Li Yunyu was also a cultivator at the Starlight Realm. He could not rule out the possibility that there might be other cultivators at the Starlight Realm in the other party's group. Hence, splitting up like this was undoubtedly the best outcome. Otherwise, if they were to fight, he would not be able to determine the final outcome. Li Yunyu smiled faintly, what I want is very simple. As long as you give us the prescription that you have researched, I will let you go. How about it? Don't even think about it. Ren Zimei immediately rejected him. It had not been easy for Bailey Hongzhuang to develop this healing medicine. This was an extremely important item to the Penglai Palace. How could they let the people from the Crimson Moon sect take it away so easily? Once these words were spoken, the faces of Li Yunyu and the others could not help but darken. Looking at your attitude, it's useless for me to speak nicely. I advise you to obediently hand over the prescription. This way, you can still leave safely. If you are unwilling, we can only snatch it by force. This way, I'm afraid that it will be very difficult for you to leave this place alive. Cheng Terui's voice was filled with threat. As long as you leave Xiao Nan behind and leave now, I can still spare your lives. Otherwise, all of you will die here. Di Beichen's expression was indifferent. His hawk-like gaze was sharp and filled with murderous intent. Ever since they had raised their cultivation to the Starlight Realm, no one had dared to say such harsh words to them. Now, a few ignorant fellows had appeared. He could see that these people were not weak, but if they really fought, it would not be easy for them to defeat them. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Li Yunyu couldn't help but chuckle. What a big tone. Xiao Bai, you don't look familiar. This must be your first time coming to this training ground, right? With just a little bit of ability, you're already invincible. Let me tell you, you'll have to pay the price for being so arrogant. That's right. It's obvious that he's a newbie in this team. He actually dares to stand out. What a joke. Xiao Nan sneered, back then, you were chased all over the place by Gao Hanchun and the others. Although some time has passed, I'm sure you're at most at the 6th or 7th level of the Purple Realm. How dare you show off in front of us? You're courting death. Originally, Li Yunyu and the others thought that Di Beichen's strength was a mystery. Now, after listening to Xiao Nan's judgment, they found it even more amusing. With such little strength, it was easy for them to get rid of him. Chapter 3983. Looking at Li Yunyu and others' contempt for Di Beichen, Ren Ziheng and Xiao Wenyu couldn't help but look at each other. They both felt a little funny in their hearts. Di Beichen was the most important person in their team. Now he was called Xiao by face by the other party. This was really funny. However, looking at Di Beichen's face, it was really easy for men to give him such a title. However, Di Beichen was not Xiao by face. He had both strength and appearance. He was an impeccable powerhouse. Xiao by face. Shengguan Yingying couldn't help but laugh after hearing this title. You actually called Beichen Xiao by face? As she spoke, Shengguan Yingying couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. She looked as if she had heard the funniest joke. Ha ha ha, Hongzhuang, isn't this guy too blind? He is not blind, but he doesn't have eyes at all, Bailey Hongzhuang said lightly, but there was a trace of coldness in the depths of her eyes. This damn guy, how dare he say that about her Beichen? Li Yunyu and others originally only felt that what they said was right, but after looking at Shangguan Yingying's exaggerated behavior, they couldn't help but frown. Could it be that Xiao Bai's face in front of them was actually very strong? That's not right. He had stayed in this place for a long time. He had met most of the Penglai Palace's team, especially people with outstanding appearances like Di Beichen and others. If he had seen them, he would definitely not forget them. What's more, Xiao Nan confirmed that this guy was definitely a cultivator who had joined the Penglai Palace not long ago. Why did he have such a strange expression? Li Yunyu, you are wrong. Xiao Wenyu and I are not in charge of this team, Ren Ziheng said slowly, but his eyes turned to Di Beichen. Looking at Ren Ziheng's actions, Li Yunyu and the others couldn't help but stare blankly. The former's attitude was already very obvious. He wanted to see Di Beichen's attitude. I'll count to 3. If you don't scram, I'll take your lives. Di Beichen's voice was cold. He didn't even give the other party a chance to speak before he made his decision. Seeing Di Beichen being so arrogant, Li Yunyu's face turned extremely ugly. You. However, before Li Yunyu could say anything, Di Beichen's countdown rang out. 3. Senior brotherly, this fellow is truly too arrogant. In my opinion, he deserves to be taught a lesson. Xiao Nan said coldly. Back then, he had offended LV Dong because of Di Beichen and the other 3. Just thinking about this made him very unhappy. Later on, when they found out that Gao Hanchun and the other 2 had died in the hands of the 4 of them, they were somewhat shocked. But now that they had bumped into them again, they could only say that these fellows were unlucky. 2. Stop counting. 1. It seems that you all want to die here today. Di Beichen's gaze was cold and chilling. He looked at them as if he was looking at a group of dead people. Ren Ziheng, Xiao Wenyu, you 2 are considered veterans in the Penglai Palace. I didn't expect that you would be led by the nose by a newcomer. This really surprised me. Li Yunyu looked at Ren Ziheng and Xiao Wenyu mockingly. He was a little uncertain because Di Beichen was really too arrogant. Could it be that this guy had a powerful background, so he could lead the entire team as a newcomer? Chapter 3984. Li Yunyu, let me give you a piece of advice. It's best if you leave now. Otherwise, you might really fail miserably today, Xiao Wenyu said coldly. However, Xiao Nan stood up and said, Senior brotherly, you don't have to pay attention to them. They're just trying to scare you. Previously, I clearly understood from Gao Hanchun and the others that they're cultivators who came from the outside world a year ago. They don't have any background and aren't from Penglai Island at all. Xiao Nan's face was filled with pride. Others didn't know the background of Di Beichen and the others, but he knew clearly. He definitely wouldn't be fooled by them. Are you sure? Li Yunyu looked at Xiao Nan suspiciously and couldn't help but ask in a low voice. Xiao Nan nodded affirmatively. I'm sure. Back then, Gao Hanchun alone forced the 4 of them to flee. If they had a background, how could they have fallen to such a state? That's good. Li Yunyu's expression became firm. They must have thought of this trick because they weren't a match for us. They intended to trick us. Fortunately, you know their background, so we won't be fooled. Senior brotherly, don't worry. As long as we kill all of them, no one will know about this at all. Xiao Nan's eyes flashed with excitement. As long as we bring this prescription back, we'll have made a great contribution. Li Yunyu retracted his gaze. When he looked at Di Beichen again, there was a trace of disdain and understanding. I've seen through your scheme. It's useless to us. Since you're unwilling to take the initiative to hand over this prescription, then we can only act on our own. Just as Li Yunyu was about to make a move, Di Beichen had already attacked him without hesitation. Vigorous origin power erupted from Di Beichen's body. His attack was swift and domineering. The moment he made a move, it was a fatal move. He didn't give his opponent any time to breathe at all. Seeing that Di Beichen actually had the courage to take the initiative to attack him, Li Yunyu's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. However, he quickly went up to meet him. He had stayed in this training ground for so long. Could it be that he would still be afraid of a newcomer? Let him directly expose their lies. Let's see how they'll continue to act. Bang! The two palms collided, and a tyrannical force spread out. Li Yunyu was caught off guard and was knocked back 2 steps. How could this be? Li Yunyu looked at Di Beichen in astonishment. His eyes flashed with deep shock. His opponent was just a newcomer, but his strength was actually stronger than his. Wasn't that a little too terrifying? His right hand couldn't help but tremble. He had never thought that the opponent's strength would be so powerful. The attack just now was just a casual attack, so he suffered a loss. The meridians in his right arm were directly injured. Xiao Nan was also shocked when he saw this scene. He looked at Di Beichen in disbelief and couldn't wrap his head around it for a moment. It had only been half a year since they last met. How could Di Beichen's strength become so terrifying? Li Yunyu, now you should know who the real leader of our team is, right? Ren Ziheng said slowly. Seeing this, Li Yunyu could not help but turn his head to look at Xiao Nan. Xiao Nan, didn't you say that they are all newcomers? This fellow has obviously already reached the 2nd stage of the Star Magnate realm. Chapter 3985. Then what's the situation now? Li Yunyu cursed inwardly. If he had known that the guy in front of him was so strong, he would have been prepared. He would not have met the enemy half-heartedly and suffered such a huge loss. I don't know how his strength suddenly became so strong. When I met him, he was only at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. What kind of joke is this? Li Yunyu no longer believed Xiao Nan's words. A year ago, he was still at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. A year later, he actually broke through to the 2nd level of the Star Radiance realm. Are you dreaming? Anyone with a brain would know that this kind of thing was impossible. Xiao Nan's expression was a little awkward. In fact, if he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed that such a thing could happen. However, he clearly remembered that Di Beichen and the others were at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. Therefore, when he met them, he was still a little afraid. He really could not understand how Di Beichen and the others' strength had increased so much in such a short period of time. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang appeared in front of Xiao Nan. It's time to solve the problem that we couldn't solve back then. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was cold as her gaze fell on Xiao Nan. Xiao Nan and Gao Hanchun were jackals of the same tribe. They could not solve it the last time, so this time, they would not let him go. Xiao Nan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him. From her voice, he was sure that Bailey Hongzhuang was Di Bei. It's you. I remember your voice. Among the 4 of them, he had the deepest impression of Bailey Hongzhuang. Originally, it was very easy to teach the 4 of them a lesson. However, it was because of Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills that Master Mo thought highly of her that led to the things that happened later. He could only run away with his tail between his legs. That's right, it's me. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was cold. In the next moment, her attack directly attacked Xiao Nan. Xing Mang rank 1 strength exploded forth, and following her aura, Xiao Nan's eyes couldn't help but flash with a thick sense of panic. He was only at the 8th level of the Purple Realm. Against Bailey Hongzhuang, who was at the 1st level of the Star Realm, he had no chance of winning. Therefore, when Bailey Hongzhuang attacked him, he could only quickly turn around and flee. In his mind, he kept thinking about how Bailey Hongzhuang's strength had increased so much. It was simply too shocking. "Cheng Terui, save me!" Xiao Nan hurriedly shouted. The qi behind him was pressing straight towards him. He felt as if the skin on his back was about to be cut open. He could lose his life at any time. After hearing Xiao Nan's cry for help, Cheng Terui quickly rushed over. However, just as Cheng Terui was about to reach Xiao Nan, Mo Yunjue had already blocked his path. "If you want to save him, you'd better take care of yourself first." Cheng Terui looked at Mo Yunjue in front of him and had a bad feeling in his heart. The other party had only sent out 2 cultivators, but they were both Xing Mang realm cultivators. No one knew how many Xing Mang realm cultivators there were in this group. He began to feel that their previous decision was too hasty. Chapter 3986. Following Mo Yunjue's display of strength at the second level of the Starlight stage, Li Yunyu and the rest's faces turned extremely ugly. Originally, when they saw that the other party only had 13 people, while they had 20, they thought that they should have an absolute advantage. However, they never imagined that the other party, who they thought was a complete newbie, would actually be an Astral Radiance realm expert, catching them off guard. Even in their group, there were only 3 Starlight realm cultivators. How could they not be shocked? "Looks like we've really underestimated you." Cheng Terui looked coldly at Mo Yunjue. The appearance of this man in front of him made him feel an inexplicable pressure, causing him to feel extremely unhappy. Mo Yunjue's face was expressionless, his expression cold. "You can slowly regret it when you're in hell." Just as he finished speaking, Mo Yunjue's attack came stealthily. Every move was ruthless, aiming straight for the opponent's vital points. Facing Mo Yunjue's attack, Cheng Terui broke out in cold sweat. He completely did not expect that this young man in front of him would use all his killing moves. If he was slightly careless, he would be hit in his vital points, causing him to have no choice but to concentrate fully on defending. He did not want to lose his life just like that. "All of you, support Xiao Nan." Li Yunyu was currently busy fighting with Di Beichen. When he saw Xiao Nan being chased by Bailey Hongzhuang, he hurriedly called out for the other practitioners in the team. The other practitioners were originally shocked by the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2. However, after Li Yunyu's reminder, they all reacted and immediately rushed to help Xiao Nan. Currently, their greatest advantage was that they had more people than the opponent. Naturally, they could not let the opponent take advantage of this opportunity to reduce their numbers. However, just as the other cultivators took action, Ren Ziheng and the rest did not stay idle. They immediately took action and stopped the other cultivators. "Die!" Bailey Hongzhuang shouted coldly. She pushed her speed to the limit and struck Xiao Nan's back with her palm. Xiao Nan only felt a strong gust of wind behind him. That ferocious force caused his scalp to go numb. In the next moment, he felt himself being hit by a heavy blow. Following that, his entire body flew forward uncontrollably. An intense pain came from her back. Her internal organs seemed to have shifted under this attack. Xiao Nan was completely out of control. She spat out a mouthful of blood. "Pooh!" Xiao Nan lay on the ground, unable to get up for a moment. Just as he was trying to get up, Bailey Hongzhuang stepped on his back. "Don't even think about getting up. You will never be able to stand up again in this lifetime," Bailey Hongzhuang said indifferently. Xiao Nan's cultivation was only at the 9th level of the Purple Realm. If it had been in the past, it would have been very difficult for her to deal with him. But now that she was a cultivator of the Astral Realm, it was not difficult for her to deal with him. Since she had said that she wanted to take his life, she naturally would not give him any chance to live. Xiao Nan's expression was extremely ugly. He understood how powerful this attack was. Blood kept flowing out of his mouth. If this continued, he would definitely lose his little life here. In the next moment, he immediately took out a pill from his heaven-earth bag and wanted to feed himself. Chapter 3987. Ah! Xiao Nan let out a blood-curdling scream. The medicinal pill was directly crushed into the ground, and the back of his hand was also burning with pain. Don't you go too far. Xiao Nan glared at Bailey Hongzhuang, the fury in his eyes almost shooting out. His intense hatred was so intense that he wanted nothing more than to kill Bailey Hongzhuang. However, in the face of Xiao Nan's curses, Bailey Hongzhuang only smiled coldly. I'm bullying you. What can you do about it? Xiao Nan was slightly stunned. Just as he was about to explode, he realized that Li Yunyu and Cheng Turui had been stopped by Di Beichen and Mo Yinjue. The others were still some distance away from him. Now that he was in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, there was no way for him to retaliate. It could be said that his life was completely in Bailey Hongzhuang's hands. For a moment, he lost all his temper. Were you all pretending to be strong before this? Xiao Nan could not help but ask. He really could not understand. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were only at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. How could they have improved so much in such a short period of time? This completely went against everyone's understanding. No. Then what's going on? What do you mean, what's going on? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. I'm improving while cultivating. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiao Nan was extremely depressed. This answer was as good as not answering at all. This was simply impossible. Everyone knew that at their level, every increase in level required a lot of effort, what more to complete the leap from the Purple Realm to the Starry Sky Realm. Many people were stuck at this bottleneck and were unable to break through. Bailey Hongzhuang had just casually said that they had broken through while cultivating. Was she trying to anger them to death? Woman, you're full of nonsense. Xiao Nan said angrily. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly stomped her right foot and fiercely stomped on his chest. Xiao Nan immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Since you talk so much, I'll just send you to heaven. The flowing light sword suddenly appeared in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, and she stabbed at Xiao Nan without hesitation. Help! Xiao Nan shouted, feeling as if his whole body was suffocating. He didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be so merciless. How dare you! Li Yunyu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang angrily. If they were killed by Bailey Hongzhuang as soon as they met, where would they put their faces? Hearing Li Yunyu's words, Bailey Hongzhuang stopped and looked at Li Yunyu. Just as everyone heaved a sigh of relief, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and said, then you have to see clearly whether I dare or not. Just as she spoke, the flowing light sword pierced mercilessly into Xiao Nan's chest. Xiao Nan's eyes widened as he stared dazedly at Bailey Hongzhuang. Clearly, even at the moment of his death, he could not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang would be so decisive. You! Li Yunyu glared at Bailey Hongzhuang, unable to control his anger. Stop spouting nonsense. Since you want to kill us, you should naturally be prepared to be killed as well. Xiao Nan is only going down to wait for you. Later on, you'll all join him one by one. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a small smile. Her figure flashed and she immediately turned towards the other cultivators from the Crimson Moon sect. End this quickly, don't let any of them off. Di Beichen suddenly exclaimed. Chapter 3988. Hearing Di Beichen's words, everyone present was stunned. Li Yunyu looked at Di Beichen in astonishment. He didn't expect Di Beichen to be so ruthless. wanting to take all their lives the moment he made his move. Don't leave a single one alive. Mo Yunjue's deep, black eyes flashed with a cold light as he reminded them once again. Originally, Ren Ziheng and the rest didn't understand why Di Beichen suddenly made such a decision. However, after hearing Mo Yunjue's words, they understood after thinking about it carefully. Now, they had to kill the other party without a doubt. Otherwise, if the other party leaked this news, they would be in trouble in the future. Thinking of this, everyone's gaze sharpened. Since there was no way out, they could only fight with their lives on the line. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Baishe also joined the battle. Although their strength couldn't be compared to Bailey Hongzhuang, they weren't weak either. They could still deal with the other party's cultivators. Seeing the changes in Bailey Hongzhuang's group, Li Yunyu and the rest's expressions turned ugly. They didn't expect the other party to want them to kill them all in one fell swoop. Di Beichen's attacks became increasingly fierce, oppressing Li Yunyu to the point that he couldn't breathe. Li Yunyu was also extremely depressed. Clearly, he and Di Beichen were both Star Rays Level 2 cultivators. However, he was constantly being suppressed by Di Beichen. It was very difficult for him to even counterattack. He could only barely cope with Di Beichen's attacks. One must know that his battle strength was usually very strong among Star Rays Level 2 cultivators. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. It could be seen that Di Beichen's battle strength was indeed very abnormal. His gaze shifted slightly. He had originally hoped that Cheng Terui could kill Mo Yunjue. This way, the pressure on him would be reduced by a lot. As long as he could kill the other party's Star Rays Level 2 cultivators, the outcome of this battle would be decided. However, when he looked at Cheng Terui, he realized that Cheng Terui's condition wasn't any better than his. Both of them could only passively fight, unable to pose any threat to the other party. Li Yunyu cursed in his heart. If this continued, they would really die here. Di Beichen also noticed that Li Yunyu was distracted, and a sneer appeared in his eyes. Wasn't he courting death by being distracted at a time like this? Bang! Di Beichen fainted and then punched Li Yunyu in the chest. Li Yunyu hurriedly retreated a few steps, but Di Beichen did not intend to give his opponent any chance to breathe after his successful attack. He immediately attacked the same spot on Li Yunyu's body, one punch after another. His movements were as fast as lightning, and he continuously landed on the same spot. Li Yunyu could only feel an intense pain coming from his chest. He couldn't tell how many punches Di Beichen had landed on him. When Di Beichen released his grip, he could no longer control his body to continue standing. His entire body fell to the ground with a loud bang, and blood flowed out from the corner of his lips. Senior Brother Li. The Crimson Moon Sect's cultivators couldn't help but exclaim. Li Yunyu was the strongest leader in their team. They never thought that he would be beaten down by the other party just like that. When they looked at Di Beichen again, their eyes flashed with a strong sense of fear. Chapter 3989. It turned out that this Di Beichen was not Xiao Bai at all, but a cultivator with abnormally strong abilities. When Ren Ziheng said that Di Beichen was the leader of their team, he was not trying to scare them, but it was all the truth. Senior Brother Li. How are you? Cheng Terui looked at Li Yunyu worriedly. Nothing must happen to Li Yunyu. If Li Yunyu fell, then they were destined to fail. Li Yunyu forcefully swallowed the blood between his lips and teeth. His face was pale, but his gaze was sharp. I really underestimated you. Di Beichen's appearance was too deceiving. He was so young and had such outstanding looks. Who would have thought that he would be so powerful? You overestimated yourself. Di Beichen's gaze was indifferent. He looked at Li Yunyu, who was holding on, with a mocking expression. Others might not know how serious Li Yunyo's injuries were, but he knew very well. Li Yunyu was already severely injured, and was no longer his match. If you have the time to worry about your senior brother Li, why don't you worry about yourself instead? As soon as he finished speaking, Mo Yunjue kicked Cheng Terui's body. Boom! Cheng Terui's body fell heavily to the ground. He immediately tried to get up, but Mo Yunjue did not give Cheng Terui a chance to refute. He immediately stabbed his sword. In your next life, before you rob someone, you have to be careful. You have to consider whether you have the ability to do so. Chi! The sound of the sword piercing into the body was heard. Mo Yunjue coldly withdrew his sword, leaving behind a trail of blood. Cheng Terui's body twitched, and he stared straight at Mo Yunjue. Clearly, he did not expect his life to end like this, without any chance to recover. At the same time, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang also ended the lives of the opposing astral radiance cultivators. If the opponent's cultivation was higher than theirs, they might be able to hold on for a while longer. But if the opponent's cultivation was the same as theirs, and they had the blood chi field and the killing chi field, there was only one ending for the opponent: defeat. The Crimson Moon sect had a greater number of cultivators and they had the upper hand in the battle. Therefore, even though when Xiren and the others were fighting with all their might, they could only remain in a stalemate. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang understood in her heart. The Penglai Palace was indeed the strongest force on the Penglai Island. The overall combat power of the cultivators was also stronger than that of the Crimson Moon sect. That was why they were able to fight evenly without having the upper hand. Compared to the calmness of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, the cultivators of the Crimson Moon sect were ashen. In the blink of an eye, the strongest fighting force in their team had been dealt with. The result of this battle was obvious. Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but look at each other, no longer in the mood to continue fighting. Stop them. They're trying to escape. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately saw through their thoughts and immediately reminded them. Once they let these people go, there was no telling what kind of trouble they would cause in the future. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang said this, the cultivators of the Crimson Moon sect scattered in all directions. At a time like this, the only way to save their own lives was to split up and run. Chapter 3990. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two didn't stay idle either. They immediately chased after them. Not long after, everyone returned to their original place, holding the Qianquan bags they had just obtained. Looking at the situation, there should be no fish that escaped the net. Di Beichen's face showed a trace of a smile. His already handsome face was even more handsome. Shangguan Yingying nodded. Of course. Since we have already said that we won't leave anyone alive, we naturally won't give them any chance to escape. Li Yunyu and the others are seeking their own deaths. We have already warned them before, but they didn't believe us. Now, they have lost their lives here. Ren Zimei spread out her hands, looking helpless and mocking. Overestimating one's own strength would only lead to such an ending. Serves them right. Shangguan Yingying curled her lips. They thought they were the predators, but they didn't expect that they would be the prey in the end. They can't blame anyone but themselves for being too greedy. They chose their own path. We are just protecting ourselves. Ren Ziheng smiled faintly. Di Beichen nodded. We can't mention about this prescription. Once it is heard by someone with ulterior motives, it will be very disadvantageous for us. Indeed, we were too careless before. We almost caused big trouble, Ao Lingxiao sighed. Ao Lingxiao sighed. If it weren't for the fact that their team's strength was relatively strong, the situation would have been terrible if Li Yunyu and the others had succeeded. Learning from their mistakes, everyone no longer brought up the matter of the prescription. Previously, the matter with Li Yunyu and the others had already made them wary. If they were targeted by a stronger team, their situation would be dangerous. In the next few days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were focused on dealing with the skeleton army. Every time the skeleton army appeared, they would accumulate points while picking the black flowers. Although the black flowers were dazzling and didn't occupy a lot of points, they needed to make a large number of them. Therefore, they needed a lot of points. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked in the depths for several days and still didn't find anything that could cause the skeleton to mutate. Fortunately, the strength of their team was indeed not weak. Therefore, even if they encountered the skeleton army, they could often escape unscathed. Although injuries were inevitable, overall, there were no losses. Unknowingly, half a month had passed, and it was finally time for the teleportation array to be activated. We can finally go back. Xiao Wenyu couldn't help but sigh. When they had first come here, their team had been full. He hadn't expected that only the 4 of them would be left. One could imagine how emotional he felt. I've been busy for so many days this year. It's indeed time to go back and have a good rest. Ren Ziheng smiled faintly. I'm sure that after we return, junior sister Bailey will tell the Hall Master and Master Long about the healing medicine. They will definitely be very happy. A smile appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's face. After half a month of research, she had successfully developed the healing medicine. There would not be any other problems. In that case, another incredible thing will happen to our Penglai Palace. In the future, this news will surely resound throughout the entire Penglai Island. Who knows how many forces will be envious of us? Chu Jinfeng said with a smile. Chapter 3991. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others returned to Penglai Palace, Xiao Wenyu and the other 3 bid farewell to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Ren Ziheng, junior brother D, will head back first. Xiao Wenyu cupped his hands. Thank you for your help this time. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to return safely. Senior brother Xiao, you've said thank you many times. We all understand. Di Beichen smiled faintly. Hearing this, Xiao Wenyu also chuckled. Haha, that's true. See you next time. Goodbye. After Xiao Wenyu left, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others went directly to the restaurant to have a big meal. After eating dry rations for so many days in a row, they just wanted to reward themselves. Eating the steaming hot meal again, everyone felt a burst of joy. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others went to Long Yanwei's residence. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived, they only saw Long Yanwei and did not see Yi Zihua. A hint of surprise appeared in Wen Xiren's eyes. It's rare that Instructor Yi isn't here today. Hearing this, Long Yanwei could not help but chuckle. Do you think Yi Zihua is so free every day? It's just that every time you come, you have something to do, so he's always here. However, if he knew that you're coming today, he might come too. In that case, Instructor Yi still pays a lot of attention to us. You're all in the limelight of Penglai Palace. It's not strange to receive such attention. Long Yanwei smiled faintly. Looking at you guys, you must have gained quite a lot from the training ground this time. Di Beichen and the others looked at each other and nodded. Not bad. Then why are you looking for me today? Long Yanwei looked at Di Beichen and the others curiously, then his gaze fell on Imo Yinjue. We're here to see how Imo Yinjue's contract beast is growing now. That's one thing. Imo Yinjue said. Just one thing. Long Yanwei raised his eyebrows slightly, and a hint of doubt appeared in his eyes. What else? At this moment, Yi Zihua's voice sounded from outside the house. Yanwei, I heard that your proud disciples are also here. Hearing this voice, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but chuckle. Sure enough, Yi Zihua paid them a lot of attention and rushed over as soon as he heard the news. Seeing Yi Zihua appear, Long Yanwei said, "You came at the right time. They were just talking about not seeing you today." "I see." Yi Zihua's figure slowly appeared in front of everyone. "I don't need to guess. I know that it must be Wen Ziren who said that, right? You know it. Of course. Now, He Long Yanwei's expression turned serious. Since Bailey Hongzhuang and the others came to look for him, something important must have happened. Di Beichen smiled faintly, "Master Long, we're here to tell you a piece of good news." "Oh." Long Yanwei was surprised, "What good news?" Yi Zihua's face also showed curiosity. "Didn't you just come back from the training ground? What good news can you bring?" Chapter 3992. Looking at the actions of Di Beichen and the others, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua could not help but turn their gazes towards Bailey Hongzhuang. They were extremely curious. "I've already successfully developed a medicine that can restrain the dark force." Bailey Hongzhuang's red lips parted slightly as she revealed the good news with a smile on her lips. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua could not help but be slightly stunned. "Didn't you already develop it before?" Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. "Previously, it only had a restraining effect. This time, it completely restrains the dark force." As soon as these words were spoken, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua's pupils instantly dilated as they stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. It was as if they could not believe it. "What did you say?" Yi Zihua raised his voice and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. "You've developed a medicine that can completely restrain the dark force." "That's right." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded affirmatively. "How did you manage to develop it? Didn't you always say that you were still lacking a medicinal catalyst?" Long Yanwei could not help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang had previously mentioned this matter, and he had also heard the same thing from the 100 Flowers Gate. However, not only had the 100 Flowers Gate not found the medicinal catalyst, they had not even thought of a way to restrain it. Clearly, there was a huge gap between their progress and Bailey Hongzhuang's. In fact, he felt that it was already very difficult for Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to create this healing medicine with a restraining effect. He never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to create a healing medicine that could completely restrain the dark force. However, what Bailey Hongzhuang said at this moment was definitely not a lie. He was also extremely shocked in his heart. "I happened to find this medicinal catalyst when I went to the training grounds this time. After a period of research, I found that the medicinal catalyst was not wrong. Coupled with the success of my previous research, I've successfully concocted a healing medicine that can completely restrain the dark force." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said. Hearing this, Yi Zihua and Long Yanwei's eyes flashed with a trace of excitement. "Bailey Hongzhuang, you're really a genius." In order to find a way to restrain the dark force, the entire Penglai Island spent a lot of effort, but there was no progress. They did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to find a way not long after she arrived. This medicine was of great significance to them. Long Yanwei looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with eyes full of emotion. He had never thought that he would be able to recruit such a genius on a whim. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang's results, the conditions he offered to recruit her were nothing at all. Back then, he had felt that he had suffered a loss. Now, it seemed that he had profited greatly. Long Yanwei, Yanwei, Yanwei's, he said Yanwei. Long Yanwei thought about it. He knew the significance of this prescription for Penglai Palace and even the entire Penglai Island. If Bailey Hongzhuang was willing to give this prescription to Penglai Palace, then Penglai Palace's first position would be unshakable. At the same time, he also knew that such an approach was somewhat difficult. It was really not worth it to hand over such a treasure. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. Master Long, since I've come to tell you, I'm naturally willing. Chapter 3993. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua couldn't help but look at each other. Their eyes flashed with a light of disbelief. They originally thought that it would be very difficult for Bailey Hongzhuang to hand over the prescription, but after all, there was an example last time. They felt that it might be possible. They really didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to agree so easily. Happiness came too suddenly, making them somewhat unable to believe it. Are you really willing to hand over the prescription to Penglai Palace? Long Yanwei couldn't help but ask again, just to confirm Bailey Hongzhuang's answer. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Yes, I came here to hand over the prescription to you. In this way, Penglai Palace can also speed up the production of the medicine that can completely suppress the dark power. It will be very helpful to everyone. After receiving Bailey Hongzhuang's affirmative answer, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua couldn't help but reveal ecstatic smiles on their faces. If it was someone else who told them that they had developed a medicine that could completely suppress the dark power, they might not believe it. However, this person was Bailey Hongzhuang, so they wouldn't doubt it. Because Bailey Hongzhuang did have this ability. Bailey Hongzhuang, it's great that you are willing to hand over the prescription to us. I think the palace master will be very happy after hearing this news. Long Yanwei said with a smile. Yi Zihua couldn't help but say, the entire Penglai Palace and even Penglai Island will benefit from your actions. Now, you have really become a great person of Penglai Island. When Bailey Hongzhuang told them the prescription, they were very surprised. Now that they knew that the reason why Bailey Hongzhuang did this was not for her own benefit, but to help everyone, he couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang in a new light. At Bailey Hongzhuang's age, there were very few people who could have such awareness. However, as she said, developing a medicine that could completely suppress the dark power was of great significance to the entire Penglai Island. This meant that they wouldn't have such a large number of casualties in the future. Many practitioners wouldn't be killed by some small injuries. Their power to deal with the skeleton army would also increase. Instructor Yi is too kind. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. Bailey Hongzhuang, I'm really curious how you found the catalyst. Long Yanwei looked at Bailey Hongzhuang curiously. I know that the people of 100 Flowers Gate have searched the training ground for so long but they couldn't find the catalyst. It's only your second time, but you found it. It's amazing that you can find it. Speaking of this, I have to say that Hongzhuang's eyesight is really good. None of us thought that the catalyst was actually in the skeleton army. Wen Ziren couldn't help but say. When these words came out, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua couldn't help but be stunned. Their faces were filled with astonishment. What? The catalyst is actually in the skeleton army? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, that's right. The catalyst is a kind of black flower. It's in the skeleton army and it's very difficult to be noticed. I just happened to find its existence. So that's how it is. Long Yanwei sighed, no wonder everyone spent so much time and still couldn't find the catalyst. It turns out that it was actually with the skeleton army. That's why everyone ignored it. Chapter 3994. Bailey Hongzhuang, you really are amazing. You were able to find the catalyst that so many people from the 100 Flowers Hall failed to find with such ease. If the members of the 100 Flowers Hall found out about this, they would probably die of anger. Yi Zihua shook his head and sighed. Back then, the 100 Flowers Hall had always firmly believed that the catalyst was in the training grounds. Unfortunately, not a single blade of grass grew in the training grounds, so they were unable to find the catalyst at all. As a result, they gradually gave up on that idea during this period of time. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. I searched for a very long time in the training grounds as well, but I was unable to find it. However, I accidentally noticed that there were actually plants growing in the skeleton army, and I was extremely surprised as well. In reality, if she hadn't coincidentally noticed it from that angle, she probably wouldn't have known when she would have found the catalyst. It could only be said that the catalyst was hidden too well. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang passed the prescription to Long Yanwei and said, "Lord Long, give this prescription to the Hall Master. The earlier you make it, the earlier it'll be effective." Long Yanwei's eyes lit up when he received Bailey Hongzhuang's prescription, and he immediately nodded, "All right. Bailey Hongzhuang, give this prescription to the Hall Master. He definitely won't mistreat you." Yi Zihua smiled. Even though Bai Cangming often joked with them, he knew very well that Bai Cangming was an extremely fair person and would definitely not mistreat anyone. Not to mention, this prescription was extremely important to the entire Penglai Palace. It was simply a huge help to Bai Cangming. I'm sure the Hall Master will definitely be extremely happy once he finds out. Long Yanwei smiled faintly. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were chatting, a voice suddenly rang out from outside the room, "I'll definitely be extremely happy once I find out what it is." Long Yanwei and the others couldn't help but look at each other when they heard that, and a wisp of a smile appeared on their faces. Speak of the devil and he'll appear. After that, Bai Cangming's figure appeared before everyone's eyes. Bai Cangming was a little surprised when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. "So it's Bailey Hongzhuang. What are you guys talking about that makes me happy?" "Palace Master, what we said is not wrong. If you knew, you would definitely be very happy." Yi Zihua raised his eyebrows, keeping him in suspense. "Oh." Bai Cangming was surprised. "That makes me curious. What exactly is it?" In the next moment, Long Yanwei handed the prescription to Bai Cangming. "You have to reward Bailey Hongzhuang well this time." Bai Cangming took the prescription doubtfully. After looking at it carefully, he was still a little confused. "This is a prescription." "What kind of prescription?" "It's a prescription that completely restrains the power of darkness," Long Yanwei explained. Bai Cangming could not help but be stunned when he heard this. He stared at Long Yanwei in shock, and then his gaze landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. "You've developed a medicinal formula that completely restrains the energy of darkness?" Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "Yes." After receiving Bailey Hongzhuang's confirmation, Bai Cangming could not help but widen his eyes. "Did I hear wrongly? Is it really completely restraining the energy of darkness?" "I've already tested it. It really can completely restrain the energy of darkness. If you don't believe me, you can test it yourself." Bai Cangming returned to his senses and shook his head. "There's no need. I believe you." Chapter 3995. How did you do it? This is simply too shocking. Bai Cangming revealed a joyful smile. To him and the entire Penglai Palace, this was something worth celebrating. Bailey Hongzhuang took out a qiankuan bag and said, "This is the guiding herb. The medicine that I concocted previously could not completely restrain it because I lacked the guiding herb. Now that the guiding herb has been found, it will naturally be able to completely restrain it." "I see." Bai Cangming came to a realization and took out a black flower from the qiankuan bag. "This is the guiding herb. The flower is actually black. How rare. This should be a flower unique to the training ground. I have never seen any records related to it in any medical books. However, I have already studied it and this flower does not have any side effects. It seems to be born to restrain the power of darkness, and the ingredients inside are only effective against the power of darkness." Bai Cangming could not hide his joy. He immediately patted Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and said joyfully, "Bailey Hongzhuang, you have really done a great service this time. Palace Master, you flatter me. Bai Tsangming waved his hand. I am speaking the truth. You are a great contributor to the Penglai Palace. Tell me, no matter what the reward is, I will satisfy you. Oh right, after this medicine is produced, your share will be increased by another 10%. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, Palace Master, I do not need anything now. I am already very happy to be able to help the sect. Currently, she did not lack anything. Her only hope was to increase her strength. However, she had to rely on herself for this, so she did not want anything. Bai Tsangming's gaze could not help but change when he heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words. A feeling of regret silently lingered in his heart. On Penglai Island, almost everyone only cared about their own interests. From the first time Bailey Hongzhuang gave him the prescription for the healing medicine, he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was not someone who would ask for an exorbitant price. Now that he saw that Bailey Hongzhuang did not want anything, he felt even more guilty. People were often like this. The more the other party forced you, the more unwilling you were to give. On the contrary, if the other party didn't want anything, you would want to give them more. How can that do? Bai Tsangming shook his head. You've made such a great contribution, so how can you not want anything? How about this? I have a lot of things in my treasury. You can go there and pick one. No matter what you like, I'll reward you. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at each other when they heard the words treasury. They never imagined that Bai Tsangming actually had his own treasury. Compared to the bewilderment of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua's faces were filled with astonishment. Usually, Bai Tsangming cared the most about his treasury, and even they did not know exactly what treasures were inside. They never imagined that he would actually allow Bailey Hongzhuang to casually choose one. This was truly rare. Bailey Hongzhuang, there are many treasures in the Palace Master's treasury. Why aren't you thanking the Palace Master? Long Yanwei reminded. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately bowed when she heard that. Thank you, Palace Master. The Palace Master chuckled. This is what you deserve. Palace Master, we've plucked many black flowers this time. I'm sure that they can be used to create many medicines. These black flowers are all here. Chapter 3996. Thank you for your hard work this time. Bai Tsangming was all smiles. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had given him a huge surprise. We have another matter to report this time. Di Beichen's handsome face had a serious and solemn expression. Compared to the joy of developing the medicine, this matter made their mood very heavy. Seeing the sudden change in Di Beichen's expression, Bai Tsangming and the rest could not help but become serious as well. What is it? When we were training this time, we discovered that the skeleton soldiers had also begun to evolve. Previously, we only discovered that one lich had evolved. This time, not only did all the liches evolve, but even the skeleton soldiers evolved as well. According to our judgment, if this continues, I'm afraid that even the ordinary skeleton army will begin to evolve. Bai Tsangming furrowed his brows. We also received some news about this. The skeleton army's sudden increase in strength has a huge impact on us. What changes did you discover in the skeleton army this time? Their combat power has become stronger, and they can use martial skills. It's more difficult to deal with them. If the skeleton army also evolves, I'm afraid that we can no longer follow our previous judgment and choose where to train in the training ground. Instead, we'll have to go to a place further away. Otherwise, once we encounter the evolved skeleton army, it's very likely that we'll suffer a crushing defeat, Di Beichen said in a deep voice. How strange. The skeleton army has not made any movements for so many years. Why did they suddenly evolve now? Long Yanwei's eyes flickered with confusion. This was not good news for them. Originally, with the skeleton army's strength, it was already very difficult for them to eliminate it. Now that their strength had increased greatly due to the evolution, the difficulty of dealing with it had increased greatly. They originally thought that after Bailey Hongzhuang developed the medicine that could completely restrain the power of darkness, their efficiency in dealing with it would increase by a lot. They did not expect the skeleton army to also improve. They were really helpless. In my opinion, something must have happened in this training ground. Bai Zhangming's eyes turned gloomy. The skeleton army would not evolve for no reason. There must be an opportunity. It seems that we need to take this matter seriously. If there really was a special opportunity, they had to find a way to solve it. Otherwise, if the skeleton army continued to evolve, they would be very passive. That's what we thought as well. That's why we didn't see anything special when we were in the training grounds. Di Beichen said slowly, from the looks of it, I'm afraid that only the deepest part of the training ground is possible. Hearing this, Bai Zhangming glanced at Di Beichen and the others with praise. You are all very smart. I will send someone to investigate, starting from the deepest part. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others heaved a sigh of relief when they heard Bai Zhangming's decision. Since the hall master had sent someone to investigate, the possibility of finding the item was very high. They could rest assured. If he could find and destroy that thing as soon as possible, he could at least stop the skeleton army from evolving. After that, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others left Long Yanwei's residence. They had achieved their objective, and Bai Zhangming had informed them that they would head to his treasury in 2 days to select treasures. Chapter 3997. They all understood that the most important thing for Bai Zhangming now was to produce the healing medicine. At the same time, he sent people to investigate the changes in the training grounds. The impact of this matter was too great. It was probably not just a matter of Penglai Palace. All the forces on Penglai Island who were going to train needed to know about this matter. In front of the skeleton army, they were all allies and would definitely stand on the same side. After that, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others went to the cultivation area to cultivate. For several days in a row, they were in a high-intensity battle. They were not in a hurry to go to the place to gain experience. Cultivating well could actually promote the progress of their cultivation. The next day, the news that Bailey Hongzhuang had developed a medicine that could completely restrain the power of darkness spread throughout the inner palace of Penglai. For a time, everyone was shocked. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately attracted everyone's attention wherever she went. This Bailey Hongzhuang is too amazing, isn't she? She developed the medicine not long ago. This time, she just returned to Penglai Palace and made a medicine that could completely restrain the power of darkness. How did she do it? I have no choice but to be convinced by her. Among all the doctors on Penglai Island, I admire Bailey Hongzhuang. There are so many doctors and alchemists in 100 Flowers Gate, but none of them can make it. Bailey Hongzhuang made it so easily. The gap between the two can be imagined. I now have a good impression of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. If they can give the prescription to the palace master, we will all benefit. It was unknown who said this, but then many cultivators nodded. This was also what they thought. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others first joined Penglai Palace, they were envied and hated because they were too high profile and treated too well. Moreover, they caused such a big commotion back then. Most people did not have a good impression of them and only felt that Master Long and the others were too biased. However, now that Bailey Hongzhuang had made a healing medicine for everyone to benefit from, everyone changed their view of her. That was because people with strength would always receive extraordinary treatment. At least, the practitioners of the entire Penglai Palace were using the healing medicine developed by Bailey Hongzhuang. In this case, if someone still said something bad about Bailey Hongzhuang, it would be too much. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly enjoyed treatment in Penglai Palace that she had never enjoyed before. When she went to the restaurant outside to have her meal, there were actually many cultivators who greeted her in a friendly manner. "Junior Sister Bailey, let's go out for a meal." "Junior Sister Bailey, you're really amazing. I really admire you." "Junior Sister Bailey, let's form a team together next time." Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the complete change in everyone's attitude and was secretly surprised. This change was so great that even she felt it was a little unbelievable. "Hongzhuang, you are now completely popular in Penglai Palace. And you are someone that everyone admires." A smile of admiration appeared on Wen Xiren's face. "In the past, when we were walking on the road, most of the people who looked at us were not happy. Now, when we walk on the road, all the people we see show us a friendly look." Chapter 3998. Even in the past, no one would be so blind as to cause trouble for us. Mo Yinjue said calmly. Shengguan Yingying was slightly taken aback when she heard this, but she immediately reacted. Indeed, with their team's current strength, no one would be so blind as to cause trouble for them. Otherwise, wouldn't they be looking for trouble? Even so, it doesn't feel good to be hated by others all the time. Shengguan Yingying shrugged. She still preferred to be accepted by everyone. However, when she turned to look at Mo Yinjue, she thought. Mo Yinjue probably did not feel that way. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were cultivating in the cultivation area when Ren Ziheng and the others suddenly came looking for them. "Senior brother Ren, why have you suddenly come looking for us? Could it be that something has happened?" Wen Xiren looked curiously at Ren Ziheng and the others. They had previously agreed to go to the training grounds in 7 days. It was clearly not time yet. "I've come here to tell you a piece of news." Ren Ziheng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others and slowly said, "Today, people from the 100 Flowers Order and the Crimson Moon sect have come. They are now in a meeting with the Hallmaster. Teacher Yi has asked me to tell you that the 100 Flowers Order and the Crimson Moon sect must have heard about the news of Junior Sister Bailey successfully developing the medicine. They have specifically asked to see you." Hearing this, everyone's gaze fell upon Bailey Hongzhuang. It was normal for such a shocking piece of news to attract people from the other two great organizations. However, the two great organizations wanted to see Bailey Hongzhuang. Could it be that they wanted to poach her? What did the Hallmaster say? Di Beichen asked. "The people from the 100 Flowers Order and the Crimson Moon sect have specially come." The Hallmaster naturally had to give them face and had no choice but to agree. Ren Ziheng felt helpless. "Teacher Yi has asked me to inform you that Junior Sister Bailey will have to go after their meeting." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, "I understand. If that's the case, why don't we go to Master Long's place first?" Di Beichen suggested. Presumably, Long Yanwei would also be going over later. It would be better to go with Hongzhuang at that time. "That's for the best," Ren Ziheng said with a smile. "Do you guys think that the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect suddenly came here to recruit Hongzhuang? Although the palace master will also sell the medicine to other forces after obtaining the prescription, the profit from this is not small. If they can obtain the prescription themselves, it will be much more convenient." Shengguan Yingying's eyes flashed with a bright light. Bailey Hongzhuang was very popular now. Presumably, any force would have such a plan. That should only be one of the reasons. The other reason is the evolution of the skeleton army that we mentioned. I'm sure the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect are very concerned about it, so they've come to discuss it with us, Bailey Hongzhuang said. Di Beichen nodded slightly. Indeed, this matter is very important. It's to be expected that they would have such a reaction. I only hope that the three great organizations can find this thing as soon as possible. Otherwise, as time passes, the problem will only get bigger and bigger. Ren Ziheng sighed. As he spoke, he suddenly looked curiously at Bailey Hongzhuang, junior sister Bailey. If the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect are willing to spend a lot of money to recruit you, will you go? Chapter 3999. The Penglai Palace was the strongest force on Penglai Island. Naturally, the Crimson Moon sect could not be compared to it. Moreover, the 100 Flowers Gate had once invited her to join them, but she rejected them. Even if they wanted to recruit her now, the conditions they offered would not be much better than the Penglai Palace. She might as well stay here. After all, she was already very familiar with this place. Moreover, her teammates were suitable to develop here. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Ren Ziheng could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Junior sister Bailey, I'm relieved to hear that. Otherwise, it would be terrible if you were to be recruited by other forces like this. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Senior brother Ren, don't worry. That won't happen. I'm guessing that the Palace Master and Master Long are also worried about this. If they know your answer, they will be relieved. Ren Ziheng smiled. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived at Master Long's residence, they found that both Master Long and Yi Zihua were there. Greetings, Master Long, Instructor Yi. Everyone bowed. You're here. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua's eyes lit up. After Bailey Hongzhuang handed the prescription to the Palace Master, they had already made the medicine immediately. After that, they also proved that the medicine had the effect of completely restraining the power of darkness, which made them very surprised. They did not expect that the biggest problem on Penglai Island for so long would be solved so easily. Even they found it hard to believe. The envoys from the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect are currently talking with the Palace Master in the conference hall. I'm sure that after they are done discussing the matters related to the evolution of the skeletons in the training grounds, they will call for you. Long Yanwei looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and said slowly. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Master Long, they want to see me. Is it because of the prescription? That's right. This matter is simply too sensational. Thus, once it spread out, it could not be controlled. Right now, almost the entire Penglai Island is discussing this matter. This is especially true for the cultivators from the three great sects who have been to the training grounds. Originally, after your reminder that there might be something in the depths of the training ground that could cause the skeleton army to evolve, the Hall Master wanted to discuss this matter with the people of the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect. However, before he could send someone to invite them over, the other party had already heard the news and rushed over. So it seems. The 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect are really fast. Xiren teased. It's normal for them to act so quickly. After all, they've been paying attention to this matter for a long time, Yi Zihua said. In fact, the three major forces had been working hard to research medicine. The 100 Flowers Gate was the most famous, but the Red Moon sect and the Penglai Palace had also not given up on this matter. They did not expect that in the end, it was the Penglai Palace who coincidentally recruited Bailey Hongzhuang to develop a method. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were talking, Master Long's subordinates had already come to inform them. Seeing this, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua looked at each other before looking at Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang, come with us. All right. Rest here for a while. We'll be back soon. Long Yanwei then looked at Di Beichen and the others. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.